This is your emergency broadcast system.
You are listening to the hashtag Biz with the Beard podcast. Business as you never heard before. Now, belt up and shut up. It's going to be a bumpy, flipping ride.
May God be with you all.
Welcome, friends, once again to the show where we say what we want to say. This is another episode of the business podcast that is authentic, shameless, unapologetic, and raw. This is the hashtag Biz with the Beard podcast, business as you never heard before. And I am your host, the superhero who wears his cape on his face, the bearded one, Curfy Smith. But before we get into this show and get this party started, I want to take time now to give a huge shout out and sincere thank you to all of our tens of thousands of listeners and now viewers. I'm truly appreciative of every single one of you and all the support that you give, for the follows on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. It's really humbling, and I truly appreciate it. And for those who enjoy the show and want to share it, let people know that they can find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora. There's a couple of platforms that picked us up. So basically, wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll be able to find us. And if you get there, make sure you give it 5-star, thumbs up, 100 likes, high fives, slaps on the butt. I don't care. Remind all your friends and connections on social media to listen and subscribe as well. And if you haven't turned me off yet, and you're paying attention, I did say viewers, and we just launched our YouTube page as well. So you can now watch this show, specifically today's show, and some past shows from season 3 on YouTube as well. So let's get down to business. All right. My guest is an investment representative and owner of Victory Independent Planning. He is the author of 2 books, History Lessons from the Modern Investor and the 7 Pillars of Financial Wisdom. He is a certified financial planner, professional, chartered advisor in philanthropy, and accredited tax preparer. He has a bachelor's degree in history, I think there's the connection, from the University of Pittsburgh, and a master of business administration from Arizona State University. Go Sun Devils. He also served as a Naval Flight Officer from 1996 to 2005, earning the Strike Fighter Air Medal during combat operations and 2 Navy Achievement Medals. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm pleased to have on the show Mr. Patrick Huey. Patrick, welcome to the hashtag Biz with the Beard podcast.
Hashtag thank you, Curfy. It's awesome to be here, but I got to tell you, man, I'm doing some research and listening to a couple of previous episodes
of me.
With Dean and episode 54, who's a former Army Ranger, and then Eric Davis, I think was like episode 49, SEAL sniper trainer. Yeah, those are big shoes, or should I say boots, to follow in. So I'll do my best today.
You're gonna do fantastic. I have no problem. I know there's like a military theme going on as of lately. You're right, and I have another gentleman who's going to be coming on the show later on this month, who is a drill sergeant in the Army. And so, I don't know what it is. So, I'm a patriot. My father served, my grandparents served. I think it's important. So again, I appreciate your service. And I think there's a theme there, and we'll talk about that later about, people who serve in the military and their success in life and business. So, but I know
it's never an easy transition when you come out of the military and do something in civilian life. But it's great to hear some of these guys and gals who are making that transition, and they're killing it. And it's great to see. And for those 2 guys, for Dean and Eric, a lot of respect for the ground pounders. Yeah. I flew airplanes. I saw Afghanistan and Iraq from 30,000 feet. I went back to a warm bunk and a hot meal at night. So I've got a lot of respect and admiration for what they do. They certainly don't do it for the money. Yeah,
absolutely. So Patrick, I always give a weekly beard fact. And since history lessons are your thing, I'm going to give you a history lesson about beards. Did you know that at one time beards were actually taxed? I mean, go ahead. You probably do, right?
Having a tax preparer's credential, it doesn't shock me.
Yeah. So it's back when the Romans ruled, right? Peter the Great taxed men with beards to discourage the trend. He didn't like the trend. I don't know if he couldn't grow one or what, but Peter the Great wanted clean shaven faces and all the men. So he charged 100 rubles a year for this special medallion, like a beard medallion they had to wear. And on the medallion, you know, was this license. It was a license to have a beard, and it literally read, "The beard is a useless burden." And I'm like, well, you know, haters gonna hate, but you know, I can't believe it. It actually said that.
Please tell me you found one of those somewhere.
I know I don't. I you know, I just saw the story and I was reading it, and I was like, I'd like to find a medallion. I wonder if they're even out there. I would love to find one. And
so while we're on the beard facts, I know that you talked in one of your previous episodes about no beards in the military because of the chemical warfare and gas masks.
Yeah. Was I right or wrong?
You can now consider yourself fact checked by a historian and a veteran. I'm going to give you a thumbs up on that one.
Nice, good deal. I thought I got it right. I did a lot of research. So I did not want to get that one wrong, but yeah. But yeah. So this guy, yeah. You know, you think about this tax, right? On one hand, it's pure genius for making money if you're the ruler of a lot of people and greedy and disconnected. But on the other hand, you know, it's freedom, you know, right? So don't get any ideas, Sleepy Joe, if you're listening. That's right. Seems like he's trying to get money out of us anywhere and everywhere. So, but since we're on the topic of history, let's jump into your book, History Lessons from the Modern Investor.
Sure.
And I haven't got a chance to read it, but it intrigues me. And your book is basically a blast from the past, so to speak, where you go back and learn important lessons from historical figures to become a better investor today.
Yeah.
How and why did you come up with this? And why write a book about history to teach people how to invest? I'm just intrigued by that. And it's just an angle I've never seen before.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of did it to trick people. And not in the way that you automatically think, especially, you know, with Wall Street these days. But I think a lot of times we have conversations with people about finance, and, you know, I make the joke that, you know, no financial advisor can carry on a conversation without a freaking pie chart.
Right.
You know, it's just ubiquitous in the industry. But, you know, when it becomes ubiquitous, people stop paying attention. And that's kind of what I was running up against in my career is, you know, I was saying all the right things, or at least I thought I was, but people weren't really listening. They weren't paying attention. They weren't learning the basics.
You're a white noise. You were saying the same
exactly,
thing. Yep.
Exactly. You know, you're a commodity. You're saying the same thing that the jerk on television is saying. He's just saying it louder and in front of a bigger audience. So, you know, what I wanted to do is just take that fact and get around it somehow, you know, tell some stories and get people interested, and then turn it on them at the end and say, well, here's what you can learn from that little factoid that counts towards today and what you're doing and what you're dealing with and what we're trying to accomplish for you.
That's cool. So, I mean, so I know you've got, and I know why you got a degree in history, right? Or you studied history quite a bit. What was the, you know, what was the flip the switch saying, you know, I got to approach this differently than before? And this is great because I just had a coaching session yesterday with an individual talk about business development, and he's a sales guy, but he's never done really business development. It's outside of his comfort zone. I said, the key to this is you've got to get out of the apples to apples comparison, kind of like you were saying, right? You got to quit sounding like my noise. You got to go in there, present value, and be different. And, you know, and it's hard as
it's the old story, right? That, you know, no matter what you're selling, at the end of the day, you're selling yourself, right? People buy from people that they trust and they like. And what I wanted to do was give people kind of a projector into my mind and how my mind works and the things that I find interesting and funny and worthy of putting on paper, and then let the conversation roll from there. And I think that's an important piece of it. You know, I wanted people to know me better. So I put it down on paper, and you know, results are mixed. You know, some people love it. Some people are like, man, just another thing in my bookcase that I'm never going to read, but that's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be for everybody.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these historic figures. Which historical stories or figures would you say resonate most in the current market?
You know, in the current market, we talk a little bit in the book about inflation. I think that's a big buzzword right now, and certainly it is for good reason. I think a lot of people miss out on the fact that, always and everywhere, inflation is a monetary phenomenon. And one of the first people to talk about that was not really an economist. He was an astronomer.
Right.
And so maybe because of that, we've started to forget what the true lesson is. But yeah, I think inflation matters. I think it's something that people are talking about now. And I think that it's probably the biggest lesson that people can take away right now from the book, is that this is something that it's not new. I mean, if you live through the 70s, inflation exists.
Yeah.
But since about 85, it's been fairly tame, and that may be changing now. We'll have to see how all this plays out.
Yeah, I know. I got a couple of clients that are in the construction business, and back in May of this year, watching those building materials just skyrocket like they did was just unbelievable. And they've dropped, significantly, but they're still not where they were. I was just in Lowe's the other day, and I was like, dang, this is just, I can't believe how expensive this stuff is. And
I think a lot of people thought that, this is just, this is transitory, to steal a term from the Federal Reserve. This is transitory because it's driven by COVID. Well, yeah, it is. But a lot of the supply chain disruptions I think we've seen over the world, probably are not going to come back in the way that they were for quite some time. So, yeah, when you've got that kind of disruption between supply and demand, another topic we touch on in the book, things are going to change, and things can quickly get out of hand if we let them.
So how many individuals do you cover in the book, or what are some, just some, historical figures? I know there's Caesar and George Washington and Copernicus. Who else is in the book? And give me, in your opinion, the best lesson from them all, or from all of them. Which one's kind of like the best lesson that you like, and why?
If you really put them all together, the lesson is don't trust your brain. Because our brains have evolved not just over written history, but unwritten history, since we were, hunter-gatherers, towards very specific things like staying alive, staying away from predators, finding food. They have not evolved to trade algorithms and, stocks on millisecond basis, right?
Right.
We're very emotional creatures. We do things that are not logical. And in those cases, we can hurt ourselves. So that, to me, that was the major theme of this book, was you're supposed to get to the end and go, you have these amazing scientists like Copernicus and Edmund Halley. You've got kings of Europe. You've got founders of the country. You've got stage and screen stars, and I even talk about Frank Sinatra in the book.
Right.
All these people are working with a brain that wasn't designed for modern life. Right. Now we can get around that. We can figure ways around it. We can be smart about it, or we can be stupid about it. But I think we have to realize that it's a fact. And until we do that, it's going to be very difficult to navigate the modern investment environment without that kind of knowledge.
Well, what do people need to know right now about history that can help them, navigate today's markets and their investments?
Yeah, we talked about inflation. The other one I talk about in the book is supply and demand. And I think it's a huge one to understand. And everybody, rolls their eyes because they remember Econ 101. In the book, I actually talk about the Great Plagues of Europe in the what has now come to be called the Dark Ages, although that's somewhat controversial because it wasn't really a dark age. There were some certain periods where things didn't completely go to hell.
Right.
But so historians love to argue about, should we call it the Dark Ages? Should we not? I'm old school. I'm calling it the Dark Ages.
Right. Come on. We change stuff just because we're bored. I mean, come on. I can't stand that.
So, I talk about the plagues and what happened in Europe. It's kind of interesting because this book came out before COVID. But the plagues, people forget, wiped out between 30 and 50% of the European population.
Wow.
And depending on the source that you read. And that had a massive effect, obviously, on the labor pool in Europe. The labor pool in Europe shrunk so much that all of a sudden you had people saying, well, my labor should be worth more, right? If I'm going to work and you don't have as many workers, you got to pay me more.
Yeah.
And guess what we got out of that? We got a middle class.
Yeah.
That was really the impetus for the growth of a middle class between, the monarchy and the nobles and the dirt poor. So, kind of nice to know that good things can come out of terrible circumstances like that. But also interesting to realize just how much supply and demand are, interacting on a day-to-day basis, and we don't even realize it. Yeah. We talked about the building materials. There are 1,000 different sectors and areas of the economy where all that is happening right now.
Oh yeah.
And if we don't pay attention to what the signs are telling us, we're not doing our jobs as investors.
Yeah. Well, $80 to fill up my truck yesterday. I was like, geez, this is ridiculous. And I don't think really here's my opinion. We don't pay. It's not that we don't pay attention. I think we pay attention to the politics more than we do the actual, the history lessons, like you said, right? And now we're almost like de-evolving. We're just like listening to what people tell us and believing, but not going back to, here's the facts.
Devolving is a good word.
Devolving is that even a word? I think I just made it up.
I think it is a word, but think about it. We're becoming more tribal,
right?
It
is.
We're pairing up into Giants and Jets fans. And if you are aligned with one of those, then you automatically think this. And if you align with the other, you automatically think this. And now I have permission to hate you because you do that.
Right.
And that is so destructive on so many levels.
Exactly.
And I kind of talk about that in the book as well. There's this troika of disinformation and fear out there coming from social media, coming from the internet, coming from, in my case, business news, 24-hour business news.
Right.
Who needs 24-hour business news?
Don't. Right.
Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah.
When they look back at the collapse of Western culture, I firmly believe they'll start with 24-hour news cycles and why it all went downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, because you remember when it first started, or like when you started watching the news, just before the 24-hour news cycle started happening, you'd get this huge like breaking news coming across the bottom of your screen. Now it's like you turn on a 24 news cycle, it's a breaking news every 10 minutes. It's like, it's dumbed down. And I will tell you something, and I don't know if this is being stupid or whatever, but after this last election, I made it a point, especially probably right around March of this year, I turned the news off. I haven't watched the news probably since March. I refuse to watch it. And I'll tell you what, from a mental health capacity, it has helped me focus. I am less emotional. I am more logical, and I just don't watch it because it doesn't really matter.
I forget who the author is. I'll look it up. Maybe we can throw it in the show notes, but he referred to, it was actually co-authors. They referred to, a lot of these things that we've gotten into, the internet, 24-hour television and social media as infinity pools, meaning once you're in, if you allow yourself, you'll just keep going down and down and down and down because it never ends. That's why I read the newspaper. Yeah, it's a finite thing. I know when it's over, I feel like I've gotten what I needed to out of it. I actually read a couple of papers, one liberal, one conservative, so that I don't fall prey to confirmation bias. Another topic that's in the book. I think that you really have to be your own advocate these days, and either limit your use, cancel your use, or come up with some other ways of getting your news and your information and your contact with humanity. Because what we're doing over the last 10 years, I'm pretty concerned about, and I don't think it's working that well. Yeah.
You ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
I did. Yeah, that's a family favorite.
Spooky, huh?
There are some things in that movie that just, whew.
Right. It's a bad movie, but I don't think it's that great of a movie, but you watch it, I'm just like, wow. we're not too far from there. It's getting close.
Yeah,
And
it's getting
that's scary.
close.
Well, I'm a huge, I'm a 80s, 90s kid, right? I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. And I know you mentioned him in the book, right? Specifically from his show and Seinfeld and his in the character Costanza, who's one of my favorite characters on the show, and what it means to be a contrarian. So what does that mean? What does that have to do with investing?
Well, first of all, if you're going to mention George, we have to mention as of this taping that the Yankees lost last night in the play-in for the playoffs. So condolences to the Steinbrenners.
Yeah, should have had those 100% cotton uniforms, right?
That's right. Shouldn't have fired George. T-Bone had it right.
Yeah.
No, George talks about in one episode, everything in my life I've done wrong, right? Every decision I made have been wrong. So starting today, I'm going to take what I think is the right decision. I'm going to do the opposite, right? That is the ultimate contrarian.
Love that
right?
episode.
Somebody who is swimming against the stream, and things go pretty well for him until they don't. Of course, it's George. But the point to me there was there are times when it certainly does make sense to kind of not do what the herd is doing, to think about things in a way that is a little different, to be in your words, unapologetic and raw. And to try to maybe get to a little bit more truth than is available in the common media on like we said, like the 24-hour news cycle and the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and I don't want to give away any more from this book because we've really kind of gotten into the book. So let's talk about
Can I just do one more Costanza?
Yeah, of course. You can do as many as you want.
Yeah, no. When I think about the last 10 years and I think about George, I just think George is getting frustrated.
Yeah, right. He talks that third person, right? That is hilarious.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, George is the best. And his parents crack me up. I could go. There's a story. I'm gonna pass on that one. But let's talk. You have another book called The 7 Pillars of Financial Wisdom.
Yeah.
And I've had a guest on the show in season 2, I believe it was in season 2, who discusses the 7 pillars of freedom. And you know him. I think you know him. That's how I think we got introduced. And he's my beloved bearded Hawkeye buddy, Kurt Mercadante. Yeah. We're both Hawkeye fans. Go Hawks. Number 3 in the country today. I love it.
Congratulations.
We'll see how they can continue that this weekend against Penn State. But this book's another historical perspective of modern investment. How does it differ? And what is the one thing your readers will get from this book that you really want them to get from this book that's different from the other book?
First of all, as a Pitt grad, I'm going to say go ahead and beat Penn State this weekend.
That's right. I didn't even put that 2 and 2 together, man. Thank you.
Second of all, with much respect to Kurt and his 5 pillars.
Yeah.
My book is 7 pillars. So clearly it's 2 more. And that makes it better. Stronger
foundation. Yep.
Exactly. No, Kurt's a good friend. And if anybody out there is, kind of struggling with their career and wondering where they have potentially gone wrong and, how they can live a lifestyle that serves them versus, serving somebody else, I highly recommend that book.
Yeah.
For the 7 pillars of financial wisdom, really what I was trying to do with that book is kind of coach people on how to hire a financial advisor.
Okay.
Because there is a lot of misinformation out there. I think there's a lot of people who, again, they watch the 24-hour news shows. They see people buying and selling, and Jim Cramer do this and Jim Cramer do that. And that's nothing against Jim Cramer, but Jim Cramer's in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get eyeballs so that they can have advertisers.
Yeah.
And once you understand the game, then I think it's easier to take a step back and say, okay, what do I want out of a real relationship with a financial planner or financial advisor? And even in those 2 terms, you stumble upon a realization, which is not every financial advisor is a financial planner, right?
Yep.
Some of them don't do any planning at all. They're not looking at, the ins and outs of an overall plan. And maybe that's what you need. Maybe it's not, but you should understand the difference before you go and start to engage somebody.
No, I know there's a way to get a copy of this book besides Amazon, right? If you go to your website on victoryindependentplanning.com and answer a few questions, you'll get a copy of the 7 Pillars of Financial Wisdom. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. So
it's an ebook version, so we'll send you out a freebie. I think it's worthwhile. I think it helps people to ask the right questions.
All right. So get out there and get this book. We're gonna start talking about, but it's at victoryindependentplanning.com. Yep. Answer the questions and you'll get the free ebook. So
thanks for the plug. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll give you more plugs. So let's talk about the first pillar, expertise. Why do I need an expert, Patrick? I mean, that's so old school, right? In this day and age, and people are becoming Bitcoin millionaires overnight. I don't need. I can do this myself. Everybody else is doing it. Gary Vee says I can go become a millionaire by going out to garage sales every weekend. So right. Why do I need you as an expert? Or why do I need an expert?
It's interesting to me because I haven't gone back and revised that yet, but I may, because one of the things that I've learned, through the COVID experience, through my experience with investing and listening to experts, expertise is not necessarily all it's cracked up to be. There's a book, the author's last name is Epstein, and he talks about, it's called Range. Range is the name of the book. And what he talks about is experts are great at certain things. They're good at identifying problems and providing data. But actually what you need is somebody who is more of a generalist to interpret that and then either make policy or decisions on strategy and tactics. So what I'm talking about in that first pillar is understand which one of those you're getting. Okay. Yeah. Are you hiring somebody who is an expert in one area to do one thing for you? Or are you hiring somebody to take in all the information that's out there and apply it to your situation?
Yeah.
I'm the latter, right? I know a little bit about just about everything. But I'm smart enough to go out and find people to do certain things,
right,
that are specialties. And what I want to do is bring all of that to my client base, right? That may be the best thing in the world for certain clients, others not so much. Again, I just want people to know the difference and understand which one they're looking for. Are you looking for the generalist who's going to, give you input on, everything from Medicare to Bitcoin? Or are you looking for the guy who's looking at stock charts all day and has no idea what Medicare even does?
Right. He's really tunnel vision. Well, and that plays a lot into a lot of areas. I always say the sports world, or even like in the hiring market, the way recruiting has gotten is basically, everyone's looking for that expert for the job, or that's where the recruiters want to go. And I think they make a lot of mistakes because I think there's individuals out there that are more talented in making the decisions you want. But if you want someone to do a specific job and be an expert in that job, I guess that's what you want. But if you really want, especially at the higher level, I think you want someone who is, like you said, someone like you is a jack of all trades, right? Who has an idea, maybe not be able to do everything, but knows where to go to get it done. Whereas the other individual won't.
I like the sports analogy. Bear with me here. We'll see if we can take this to another level. We talked about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to hire a relief pitcher, or do you want to hire the manager who brings in the relief pitchers and who sets the starting lineup and figures out how to play offense and defense?
Yeah.
That to me is the difference, and that pillar of expertise, it can get very polluted in our industry. There are hundreds of designations now for financial planners and financial advisors. They all mean something different. They may or may not be useful to you as the end client. So do your homework and understand what you're getting.
I always go to the Kobe Bryant, right? Was there 13 guys that drafted ahead of Kobe? And a lot of those guys had a lot more experience.
Yeah.
Right. Were in college for 4 years, or they were overseas, and, they got the stats, and Kobe was straight out of high school, but he had the talent, and guys passed on him because 13 teams passed on him because he
Yeah.
didn't have that experience. And it was Victor Petrenko. I want to pick on that guy. Like he was the guy who's picked right ahead of Kobe Bryant. I just think of nobody knows who he was. He's the guy who's picked right ahead of Kobe. 13 guys. So yeah. Do you want someone who's, it's going to be solid, but maybe you should go for the talent, and because the talent's going to get you the championships. The talent is going to give you more than just what everybody else has.
Well, what I think is interesting about that analogy is you see how difficult it is to analyze that talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously 13 guys passed on him. 13 general managers took a look at Kobe Bryant and said, yeah,
right.
If he's around in the second round, we'll take him. So it's hard. It's very hard to analyze that talent. And that, again, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, to help people analyze who they're ultimately going to hire and what could be the biggest decision of their life. I mean, if you get a crappy financial planner, financial advisor, investment manager, you could end up like Kevin Bacon, who is a character that I talk about in the book.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize Kevin Bacon was one of Bernie Madoff's biggest investors.
Him and his wife, right?
Him and his wife. There's a reason Kevin Bacon has to be in every movie. It's because he's trying to make up for lost time. Which is sad. But he's Kevin Bacon. He's going to work himself out of it. It's just trying to get people to realize that, your cousins or your uncles or your coworkers' financial advisor may not be the right fit for you. You can't just take them on face value. You can't take them based on reputation. Because Bernie Madoff had a great reputation.
Yep.
You got to do your homework. You got to understand what you're getting into.
Let me ask you this, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but you brought up Madoff. You believe we're in for another Madoff with all this Bitcoin and everything that's going on? And what are your thoughts?
I wouldn't be surprised. It's the old Buffett-ism that you learn who's not wearing a bathing suit when the tide goes out, right?
Right.
Or who's swimming naked, I think is what he says. When the tide goes out. I think when the business cycle ultimately turns, and that's what business cycles do, they go up, they go down. When the business cycle turns, you typically see a couple things. You see a big firm go out of business that surprises people. Think Lehman Brothers, WorldCom, Enron. We can go back in history and look at those. But you also tend to see some type of fraud. Bernie Madoff was 08, Enron was your 02, 03 variety.
Yep.
It won't surprise me at all to see something like that when the cycle turns. And I'm not saying that's imminent. It may be, it may not be. One of the sidebars in the book talks about a comment that Alan Greenspan made back in 1996, I believe it was, when they saw the markets getting fairly frothy, and he called the markets irrationally exuberant. I don't know if you remember that one. And he was right, except that he wasn't fully right for another 3 years, right? Because that's when the tech bubble actually blew up. Was in late '99. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know when that cycle is indeed going to turn. But when it does, to your point, we'll see another Madoff or another Enron or something like that. It seems to just be part of the matrix. Yeah.
Well, another pillar, and I like, if we had time, I'd love to talk about all of them. We're not going to probably, so I'm going to, pick on a couple that I think really stand out. One is,
you can always have me back, Curfew.
I'll
come.
Definitely have you back.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. But the one is stewardship. That's a little different to me. That's a little unique. And so explain to me the uniqueness behind this and the importance where other investors really don't talk about this.
Yeah. I talk about it because I lived it. And we talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about how difficult it can be to transition from the military to civilian life. And when I did it, I've counted myself lucky that one of the Wall Street firms was willing to hire me as a junior broker. And I realized very quickly, I remember the sales manager calling me into his office one day, asking me a bunch of questions about the F-14, and then telling me to take his trash out. Right. What he was trying to say to me, not so subtly, was, hey, you're in my world now. And to me, between that and calling people at their dinner hour, trying to pitch them, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, that was the opposite of stewardship. That was salesmanship. Right. And I understand everybody is a salesperson. Everybody is selling something. I'm selling stuff to my son when I try to get him to do what he's supposed to do. Everybody is involved in sales at some level.
Absolutely.
But what I want to sell is me. I want to sell, my abilities, my expertise, my broad expertise, like we talked about. And I don't want that to be product driven. Right. That's stewardship to me. That is where somebody so well that you can sit down in their dining room, go over their, financial plan and their investments, and then have a cup of coffee and just talk about the kids.
Right.
That's stewardship to me.
Not the boiler room mentality with Ben Affleck, right?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah,
great flick. Yep,
that's not stewardship.
Absolutely. That's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of the Wolf of Wall Street. It's the opposite of Wall Street and the sequel. All great movies, but not the way I want to live my life. There
were some great clips of some of those things that not to do. So
yes. Those movies are now my Top Gun, right? So when I was flying airplanes and we would watch Top Gun, it was just one long eye roll, because no, we don't really do it that way. That's not accurate. That's not realistic.
Right.
Now those Wall Street movies are my Top Guns. It's like, that's not the way I want to do things.
Yeah. So Iron Eagle wasn't real back in the 80s. That was a little.
No, that was Air Force.
That's right. Okay.
We didn't pay attention to that.
Let's talk about one other.
My dad will kill me if he hears that bit.
Oh,
my dad was Air Force.
Oh boy. Yeah. Top Gun. Where's that remake or the sequel is supposed to come out?
Sequel,
wasn't it? What happened to that? Is it not coming out now?
They keep rolling it back. I think it's the spring now. I actually will go see that one because the flying scenes should be a lot better.
Yeah.
They actually stuck him in the backseat of an F-18F, and they're going to do some cool things with the cameras in the cockpit versus the original.
Yeah, that thing was supposed to be out already. I've been so excited. Yeah. It keeps getting pushed back, and I'm like,
it's supposed to be out last summer. Last summer it was supposed to come out.
Yeah. What a shame.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about value. How should a relationship with an advisor be valued in your mind? Should it just be by the return? Say, hey, this is what my guy does for me. I mean, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I think returns are part of it. I think that it all depends really on how you measure your returns. I think as well. There are some investors out there who, if they get a 3 to 4% annualized rate of return with limited volatility, yes, please sign me up for that. Mm-hmm. There are some investors out there who can't be successful if that's all they get. So I think a big part of it is, number one, understanding where you are and where you need to be and where you want to go. That's why we really do focus on a full planning process for clients before we invest $1 of their money. Because if I can get you to a place where you want to be with lower risk or lower volatility, by God, I'm going to recommend that we do that.
Right.
You can overrule it as the ultimate judge, but it pays long-term to at least know what you're dealing with. And then from there, I think that the value statement, and there have been some studies on this as far as how advisors can add additional value. Things like coaching, keeping you from doing dumb stuff, keeping you from making emotional decisions at the wrong times. That does add value. It's hard to quantify it, but people have tried and they've come up with varying numbers. And I think it's interesting to know what those studies say. I quote from those somewhat extensively in that book. I think that you can do some things as far as tax efficiency to increase value. Remember, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. So if we're making you a bunch of money, but it's all short-term gains and you end up paying, regular income tax on all those, that may not have been the best move ultimately for your total well-being. So yeah, I think that there are ways to add value that people don't necessarily think about. One of my favorites is charitable giving. You can add value not only just to in a tax efficient manner,
Right.
but you can create something for investors to, fund the causes they care about over and over again. That to me is cool.
Like, give me an example.
So we've talked with a number of families that I work with about creating what I would call like a family charitable trust, and it sounds very fancy, and it is when you've got billions of dollars, like the Gates Foundation or Warren Buffett. But you can do it for as little as $5,000. With most custodians like Schwab and TD Ameritrade and Fidelity. All you do is you go in and you open what they call a charitable account, right? So it's basically a charitable checking account. You get your tax deduction for it. You put the money in. You can invest it however you ultimately choose, and then you can meet as a family and say, okay, what do we want to do? What, I can look at my son, not yet because he's 7 and we'll be giving it all to Lego. You can sit over the dinner table and say, well, what effect do we want to have?
Right.
Where do we want to invest this money this year? I think that is a cool thing to do as a family.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And to know that you can have that type of effect, and you can have that charitable mindset that gets instilled with your kids early.
Right. Well, and you're making more money, so you can keep doing that and you can keep making that charity, those contributions a lot, to that cause for a lot longer than we normally. And that brings, I had a sister. I'm an only child now, but I had a sister that was killed in a car accident right after like her freshman year. Oh no, sorry, it's her sophomore year in college. So she was just right out of high school and was a softball player, and people, small town, Midwest, people always contribute, they give you money and so, I mean, we had plenty of money to cover the funeral costs and everything. And we had all this money. We're like, extra money. Well, what do we do with this? And this is back in, 96. So, we just basically opened up, just like we donated every year. We gave a small little scholarship to a senior softball player. If we would have had something like this, we could have done it for a lot longer, and we no longer do it anymore. I think my mom still does a little bit, but not like we used to. We should give it a scholarship specific to a person. We did it for 24 years, 25 years. But if we would have had something like this, we could have probably done way more. And, so that's, I think that's cool. That's a great idea.
I will say as a cautionary point that scholarships tend to get more complex.
Right.
If you're just giving money out to charities from these types of funds, that's usually no problem. Individuals and scholarships, that can be a different kettle of fish. So be careful.
Yeah. Good. Well, we talked about this a little bit. You served in the military, as we mentioned, and we've had several guests who've all served. And I wanted to ask you, how was your service and training, your specific service and training, made you a success or helped you in your career?
I would say there's probably a small picture answer to that, and then there's a bigger picture answer. The small picture is on a day-to-day basis, and if you talk to my clients, I think they'll back me up on this. One of the things I learned in aviation was the importance of a checklist. And when I do financial planning, it's very checklist driven because I don't want to miss anything. If you miss something on the checklist in a $50 million fighter plane, and God forbid something goes wrong, you probably end up on the wrong end of a parachute in the best case. It's kind of the same for financial planning. If you don't go through a process, if you don't make sure that you're ticking all the boxes, you risk, causing more harm then good. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's not what I'm here for. So yeah, that's kind of the small picture. Big picture wise, I think that you learn to learn from other people's mistakes. A lot of our training is based on, see what this guy did or this gal, don't do that. Because it didn't turn out well. I'm a big fan of learning from others' mistakes and not repeating them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good answer. Great answer. I never heard that before. I did a little research. I was, doing a little deep dive on you. It wasn't that deep, actually. But no, it's all right. No, you have a very extensive blog. And in fact, I mean, you have close to over 100 different topics. And they range from like the Wild West, football, even COVID. And being a recent survivor of COVID, tell me what historical, investment strategy or lessons we can learn from this pandemic.
I think some of that is yet to be written. I think we've got some more yardage to gain before we do the post-game analysis. But I will say the major thing that I have tried to get across to clients really since day one is this is going to suck. We just don't know how bad yet.
Right.
Maybe we do now. Maybe we have a much better idea now. But it's also going to pass. At some point, this will fade into history. And I talked to my parents about this. I said, do you guys remember the Asian flu breakout in the late 60s? And they're like, no. And I said, well, it wasn't as bad as COVID has turned out to be, but it was still pretty major. And it definitely affected, society and people died from it. And, there were all those tragic outcomes, but within a generation, it's almost completely forgotten.
Yeah.
I think COVID is probably not that. I think it's going to take a while for the scars to heal. Because
it's been politicized, it's been, misinformed, and that's the difference. We go back to that 24-hour news source, right?
Absolutely.
We had the paper back then, or you had Walter Cronkite that got on for a half hour and that was it.
Right.
Now it's like in your face and everyone's, oh, you should be doing this and you should be doing this. And it's like, I don't know what to do because I don't have the right information.
Right. It's the amount of, pardon the term, panic porn that is now available to us. And it's everywhere. It's on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
It's every political persuasion. That I think you're correct is going to draw out the historical memory of this for better, for worse, but guess what? This too shall pass. If I take one lesson from history, and try to wake up with it every morning, it's that this too shall pass.
Yeah. And it was, and I'm not saying wear a mask, don't wear a mask, do this, don't do this. I'm like, you're your own person. You make a choice. If you feel you need to have one and be healthier, great. That's fine. I chose a path not to. Go figure, right? And for a year and a half, almost 2 years into this thing, just about a year and a half, I never wore a mask, never got the vaccine. And I thought I maybe got it one time. Obviously I didn't, because I finally just did get it. And that's why I have a kind of large span between the last show and this show, is because I've been, recovering. Yeah. And it was worse than what I thought it was. And, I'm going to go blame back to the misinformation that's out there. Right. I didn't know. And, and even though I had an individual in my family die to it, but they were, unhealthy and had underlying symptoms. I don't, or not that I knew of. I work out, I, eat healthy, I, run, blah, blah, blah. It knocked me on my butt. And there was about a day and a half there, Pat. I was like, man, I might have to go to the hospital. And then in the back of my head is like, don't go to the hospital, man. You're going to die, because everybody goes to the hospital dies, it seems like. So it was, but again, it's going back to all this information you got, what was true and what was not true, you know, and, hats off to my own natural immunity. I came through it, luckily. So, but it's a real thing. It is a real thing. So
it is a real thing. And
safe.
let me go off on an aside here because what the hell? I want to live in a world where you can say what you just said, and somebody who completely disagrees with you will nod their head and say, okay,
yep.
I disagree, but I respect your opinion.
Yeah.
When can we go back to living in that world?
That's the world I want to live in. That's the world I try to live in.
How do we get back there? That's my question for humanity. How do we stop yelling at each other about this stuff? And it's not just COVID. It's
everything.
When COVID is a memory, we'll figure something else out that'll divide us. How do we get past that?
Well, historically, it usually, for a little while, it comes after a huge tragedy, right?
Yeah. 9/11.
9/11, yeah. Right? But how long did that last for? 2 years, maybe 3 years, and then we're right back into it. So it's just sad. It's sad. Well, man, this has been a good show, but we're not gonna end the show yet because we got to play a game called Get to Know Patrick, and I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and you have to say the first answer that comes to your mind as fast as you can. So,
do you know how terrifying this part of the show is?
So you have listened.
God only knows what's going to come out of my mouth in the next 10 questions. But okay,
you need to worry what's coming out of my mouth. That's what you need to worry about. All right, it won't be hard. They're not going to be hard, I promise. But there are some new ones in here that I haven't used before. So,
okay,
right. What's your signature dance move? I know you
my signature dance move. God, I don't know. It's probably like the 8th grade slow dance.
Hands on the hip, back and forth, left to right.
Yeah,
right? Did you know her in 8th grade?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, that's awesome. So, no, that's cool. Ever cry in a movie?
Yes.
What movie?
I don't know. It's probably some Disney movie. The only one I can really remember, the one I can remember first, I cried during the last episode of MASH.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, the movie that gets me every time is Field of Dreams, man. When he asks his dad to have a catch.
Oh, yeah.
That just like punches me right in the gut, especially now, I lost my father, so it's even more. But that's the first one that really hit me.
I'm sure after we end this, I'll think about 10 that I cried during, but.
All right, here's a good one. If you could kill off any character from a current television show, who would it be? Who annoys the heck out of you? I know you watch TV because you said MASH, you said Seinfeld, so you watch some good shows.
A current TV show. So, about all I watch now is Ted Lasso, and why would you kill any of those people off? It's too good.
Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, the last one I wanted to kill off was Breaking Bad, and he ended up doing it himself.
Yeah, that's a good show.
Season 7 or whatever it was. Yeah. I don't know. I'll to be honest with you, I don't watch that much television anymore. I watched a lot growing up. I watched a ton, especially movies in the 90s, early 2000s when I was deployed.
Yeah.
These days, if there's a character I want killed off, I just watch a different show. That's the beauty of the streaming revolution, right?
Yeah. Well, there's my son recently, he plays college soccer and he tore his ACL in May and he plays back in Illinois. And so he's moved down here to Georgia with me as he's recovered. And he's got me into these anime movies. Yeah. There's this one character and it's something Titans we're watching. And I'm like, I did it because I love them. All right, I'll watch a few with you. And man, I'm kind of into it. So every night I'm looking forward to 1 or 2 episodes. These are only like 20 minutes long, so it's easy. But there's this one character on it that just drives me nuts. I'm like, I can't remember what his name is. It's Arlen or something. It's like they need to get rid of this character. I can't stand him anymore. He's just too whiny for me.
My son being 7 years old, he's getting introduced to the Star Wars universe.
Oh yes, yeah.
I want to kill off Jar Jar Binks.
There we go. That's the first one. I got to Jar Jar Binks. Right, there's a character that was just worthless. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's a holiday that doesn't exist that you like to create?
Does Festivus count?
Yes, it absolutely does. I wear I have a Festivus shirt I wear every year during Christmas. So, that's awesome.
Yeah. God rest his soul. He went, I think he died a couple of years ago, but yeah, continuing on the Seinfeld bent, Festivus for the rest of us.
Yes, yes. What is something you refuse to share with other people? Is there anything you just won't share? Like, you know what? That's mine.
My real politics.
Really?
I'll talk politics and I'll talk theory and I'll talk, roundabout, but I won't necessarily tell you who I voted for, and I won't necessarily tell you, what party I may or may not belong to.
Right. Okay. So I can't be my next question. Are you a Republican or Democrat? I can't ask that. No. Okay. Well,
I'm neither. How's that?
There you go. What's your walkout song? If you were a fighter or a boxer or a baseball player, what would be the song playing in the background that gets Patrick or just rocking and rolling to hit that home run?
I'd probably go with Aloe Black and I'm the Man.
I'm the Man. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good one. What's your favorite podcast?
Other than this one, right?
Yeah. No, you're supposed to say this one. That's that whole thing. I was like, I was grabbing at,
Well, I got it. Clearly it's this one. What's your name again? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hashtag biz with the beard. There you go.
Clearly it's Curfy and the hashtag business with the beard. But if I was going to pick a second one that's not fantasy football related, I still listen to Adam and Dr. Drew.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
That's been around a long time.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of fantasy football?
I just got back into it this year. I took a year off last year just to decompress and got back into it.
Man. Gosh, I get into that stuff and man, I can't do that. I get too addicted to it. It's just too much. So.
It's like anything else, a little bit is fine, but it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole. But I'm enjoying it again this year. I don't follow a particular team, so it keeps me from getting too emotionally invested. Yeah. And on Sundays, I just turn on the NFL Red Zone channel and zone out.
Yeah. You got a good tight end? Any Iowa tight ends on that?
I got the guy from Buffalo, and I don't know where he went to college.
No, it wasn't Iowa. There used to be I think Scott Chandler used to be the tight end at Buffalo.
Yeah.
Iowa, but
I would think Iowa guys are probably better blockers than pass catchers. That's just my perception.
Come I got George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant. I mean, all those guys they're scoring. So Patrick, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule and coming on the show. And thank you for sharing us, your stories, your experience, your knowledge, and your life. And most importantly, thank you for your service. I really, really, appreciate that. And it's been an extreme pleasure having you on.
In all seriousness, it was my pleasure to serve. It was my pleasure to be with you today. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I am so sorry about that.
No, I'm glad you're back fighting a good fight. Congratulations on that.
But what's been over a month we've been trying to get this show going, right?
Yeah.
I apologize so much.
Hey, good things are worth the wait. So
that's right. Is there anything you want to bring up or plug before we end the show?
No, I don't really feel the need to plug anything. If people want to reach out to me, the website's a great way to do it. Get in touch if you just want to have a chat about what you're doing. And if not, that's fine too.
All right. Good there. There you have it, friends. A historically driven financial guru and CEO of Victory Independent Planning, Mr. Patrick Huey. Pat, thanks for coming on the show. Get his books on Amazon or the website, victoryindependentplanning.com. I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave a 5-star review or however they want you to do it. And especially if you enjoyed today's show, and share it with your friends. As always, I'm grateful for all of our listeners who tune in from all over the world. And don't forget that you can pick up some award-winning beard products called #Biz, ACS Wolfpack gear, the Carnivore Mindset t-shirt, right? And other #Biz with the Beard merchandise on my website at acsexec.com.
And we didn't even get into the carnivore stuff today. It would have been that's the next show.
We'll do it again. Yeah, we got several pillars to go over. I want to go through some of these pillars and really get into some detail around it. So we'll definitely have you back. Definitely.
All right.
So it's been fun. And there you have it. Another show's in the books, but never fear, the beard will always be here. And until next episode, same beard time, same beard channels. Thank you for listening to #BizWithTheBeard podcast. Remember, every genius idea starts with the stroke of a beard. Have a successful day.